This one's called Content Warning, Things That Could Happen in Australia. One day, late last spring, the sky just spat me out. The universe threw me back like a fish it had caught that turned out to be too small. Someone stopped loving me, and I fell through stories of blackness, gradually forgetting that I had ever looked up and seen light or hope or magical messages in the stars. For a few months, I tumbled in this sightless daze, my senses dimming, my connection to the world around me dissolving into the murky dark, until a certain summer evening, when I was walking home, maudlin in the Paris rain, and I heard a couple of voices calling out to me through all the literal and figurative fog. These would become my new friends, Dillon and Layla, and I was thankful for them the moment I saw them. Real Bonnie and Clyde types, sparkling, poetic, beautiful and damned, cut by the edge of life, careening through the cosmos, burning at both ends with style and desperation, sincerity and contradiction, fueled by a wellspring of love, sweet love, that would charge the air around them when they looked at each other. I spent several evenings in their company and watched as they danced with each other in the streets, as they relished each sip of wine, each note from a nearby guitar, each errant fragment of language that might signal a discovery, that might spark an inspiration or channel a clue to the great divine madness. All our conversations were both urgent and totally natural, honest and hungry, and for a few days, they brought the sky back to life for me. I began again, even if only tentatively, to look and listen and feel. When the time came for them to leave and they invited me to visit them in Australia, I said yes without even thinking about it. But even when I started thinking about it, it made sense. I'd been struggling to open my eyes, to even imagine anything worthwhile in the world. And here were two people living in a way that blasted light into every corner. I kept thinking, well, if they are writing poetry and making music, and if they are defiantly in love despite the darkness, holding a torch to the night sky and guzzling the chaos with appetite, then maybe I should just go hang out with them. Maybe they are the doctors the universe has sent to treat my ailment. So after they left, I began to organize my life around preparing a voyage to Australia. I researched the prices of plane tickets, the seasons and weather. I asked all my Australian friends what places I should see, what clothes I should pack, what foods I should try. I reached out to the poetry readings to find places where we could travel and perform. I had a big birthday coming up, so I told everyone that all I wanted was help getting myself to Australia. Soon, my efforts added up to the purchase of an actual ticket, and then there was no longer any going back. That's when it slowly started to dawn on me how little I really knew about Australia. When I was 12 years old, I had a pen pal in Sydney, and I was obsessed with In Excess, so I've always had it in the back of my head that I would eventually kind of find my way down here somehow, but beyond that, I suddenly realized I had no idea what to expect. So I came up with what I thought at the time was a really good idea. I asked all my friends, and in particular my Aussie friends, to send me their lists of their favorite Australian films. I figured, This would give me a decent sense of what the place was like, what vibes, aesthetics, and attitudes I might encounter. It also seemed like a great way to build my excitement in anticipation of the trip. So I collected a long list of recommendations and started watching one of them every night. I wish I knew how to put it more gently, but this was a terrible mistake. With every film I watched, I was increasingly terrified of company. There was the one where a teacher goes on holiday to a small town and winds up spiraling into alcohol, gambling, and violence depravity. And the one where some schoolgirls go off on a picnic and are just never heard from again. Or the one where a couple goes on vacation to the beach where they are terrorized by the surrounding nature until they are both driven to madness and ultimately their gruesome deaths. Then there was the one where the citizens of a small town conspire to wreck the cars of anyone that passes through. I watched a few Western-style ones that were loaded with murder and betrayal, at least two of which featured a main character having to kill his own brother. I saw a couple of the ones where a nice young boy falls into a life of crime because of his family. I asked Dillon and Layla for their favorites, and they sent me the one where the sweet young lovers spin out into heroin and prostitution. And then the one where the girl falls in love with a junkie, but because she's already dying of cancer anyway. Oh, and they also sent me the one where the protagonist gets raped multiple times in the first half hour and watches a soldier bash in the skull of her infant child before setting out for revenge. Along with a handful of the titles, Dillon sent me a note saying, "Here, these should give you an idea what Australia is like."
Still okay?
I kept watching more, trying to get them from different kinds of people with different tastes, but almost every Australian movie I could find depicted a dystopian, apocalyptic, drug-addled, criminally violent hellscape. And the one thing they all seemed to have in common was the ominous insinuation that if you are the stranger coming to town, then the second you set foot out into this country, something bad is going to happen to you. Of course, I tried to tell myself that these are just movies, but it doesn't help when the guy who meets his tragic fate in the movie is Heath Ledger, or that the guy in that band I liked was Michael Hutchence, or when I read the article about the actual Prime Minister getting swept out to sea. At a certain point, I was like, what am I thinking? Australia is going to kill me. And it also didn't help when all my friends started sending me warnings about giant spiders and deadly snakes and crocodiles that climb trees, sharks that prowl eerily close to the sand, emus who can apparently hold their own against human beings in an all-out war, kangaroos that randomly crash through your windshield or show up to punch the shit out of you in your own backyard. I was surprised to discover how many different kinds of reasons there were to fear Australia. And the more I looked into it, the worse it got. My neighbor was convinced I'd get skin cancer from the sun. My other friend was sure I'd get hit by a car by looking the wrong way when I crossed the street. I went through a brief period of wondering if I should just cancel the trip. But then a thought crossed my mind that I held on to all the way to the airport. What if, on some subconscious level, all this danger, this fear, this menace of unknown proportions is exactly what I was looking for when I said yes to this trip in the first place? I didn't articulate it to myself at the time, but I was depressed at the end of my rope, unable to keep facing the life I was stuck in, and perhaps some part of me recognized that I could come here, at least metaphorically, to die. To let go of some former set of definitions for myself, throw myself on the mercy of the road like I used to when I was a kid. To start again from zero and let fate just have its way with me for a while. Jam with my friends, sing to the moon, shout improvised poetry from the window of the moving car, confront the mythical desert, the magisterial ocean, and ask what they want to do with me, even if I know what they want to do with us all eventually. and just let the motorway drop me where it will. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't mind too much what becomes of me while I'm down here. I leave it up to you, Australia, to do whatever you want to do with me. Just for the record, it doesn't have to be murder. Or overdose, or animal attack, or cancer, or even assault. I'd be perfectly happy to be in that movie where I make a humble little home out by the airport. Or the one where an affable bushman with a boomerang on his belt invites me over for a friendly barbecue. Or even the one where the ambitious, aspiring writer goes her whole life without ever knowing how bad she is. I just want to feel like I don't know what's possible. Like I haven't already encountered the terms of my condemnation. Like I have not yet lived all the important, decisive moments in my life. I want to look out at the sky over a distant horizon and have no idea what's under it. I want to have no idea what's under my own skin. I want the boundaries to recede in all directions. I want to spill formless, organic into the landscape and be shaped by it. I want the kind of freedom that only comes with a complete divorce from one's context. I hear people say that you can't run from your problems because when you travel, you take them with you. But that's clearly bullshit because my ex isn't here. My landlord isn't here. I mean, I guess I brought my teeth with me. But who knows? I might fall in love with an Australian dentist. The point is that I've made it. As far away from my former life as I could even imagine trying to go. Nobody back home knows where I am, and nobody here knows who I am. I've become a blank page, ready and eager to receive any kind of information or inspiration that presents itself. And so far, it's been absolutely great. I've been here for 6 days now, and every day I've been woken up by a different unfamiliar bird call. I spent one whole day just getting high and trying all the amazing kinds of chocolate you've got here. I saw a bearded dragon in the park. I saw birds of paradise growing outside a gas station. I feel like everything is possible. Like anything could happen around the next corner. Like I am alive and it is not yet either good or bad. I feel ready to meet existence head on, without the distractions of my usual environment, without my habits, my references, my tastes, without any expectations, without the safety of my support network, or even of my identity, which has been starting to feel like a dead skin that I can't manage to shed. By next week, I might be a surfer, a wild animal wrangler, a roadie for Dillon and Layla's band. I might be writing about things that I can't yet fathom. I might even quit writing altogether. These could theoretically be my last lines. Perhaps this trip will give me the opportunity to take a good, long, hard look at who I really am and what I really want. Aha! At last, the greatest danger of all. Thank you very much for having me. And thanks to Dillon and Layla for making the cool projection video.